And welcome everybody to the Lakers Outsiders podcast. We've got almost the whole gang here today of the normal faces that you'll see on here. The Lakers moved to 7-5 on the season after beating the Brooklyn Nets again. They seem to make it a yearly thing where they're beating the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, so is everybody else, but you know, it's nice to have somebody's number over these last couple of years. But Lakers beat the Nets 125 to 118, I believe was the final score. And as I said, the Lakers moved to 7-5 on the season in a development that we all saw coming before the season. Gary Kessler here, joined by Grant Goldberg, Hani Amadi, and Jacob Rude. How's it going, fellas?
Good. How are you?
I mean, anytime the Lakers win, I'm always good, you know. All right, so I admittedly did not get a chance to really watch the game. I saw the last few minutes where it was just a foul fest and there's a lot of free throws and stuff like that.
Not a true fan.
I'll just quit my job so that I can watch all the Laker games.
The Lakers are a job.
That's why I don't have one.
But the Lakers got not much needed to win because their upcoming schedule is really, really tough. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Grant, you were on the tweets tonight. Lakers got it done. They kind of struggled with a team that, you know, obviously many see as a bad team. There's a lot of kind of unfamiliar faces on that roster. But how were the Lakers able to get the win tonight?
Well, before I answer your question, I got to find a jacket because it's kind of cold in here from all this ice flowing through my veins on these tweets. But throughout the whole game, even when the Lakers went down at a point in the second quarter, you never really felt like this game was out of control. And at times it felt like the Lakers should be blowing the team out, but you know, the bench really never got into it. And for a change, the starters actually carried the team. You had Julius with the triple-double, and D'Angelo continued his barrage on the Brooklyn Nets. So it was just a good win with a couple really standout performances from D'Angelo and Julius. And Mozgov, too. Mozgov played really well along with Tark Black.
Yeah, that seemed to be the thing that jumped out at me as I was following it on my phone. As I was telling you guys before we went on, I saw we were up 27-19, and then kind of figured, okay, like the Lakers they're going to have this game. They're going to play well. They're going to, win this game comfortably. And then the Nets went on a 10-0 run because you kind of figured the bench, as great as they've been all year, they just pushed that lead out a little bit more. Hani, what did you see from the two units? I mean, that made each unit kind of different tonight in their production.
I think we saw a little bit of a regression that we probably should have expected with the bench, especially when it came to Lou Williams and Nick Young. They've been shooting lights out, and that wasn't something that we should have expected. Nick Young is a starter, obviously, but he kind of plays with the second unit a lot. Mm-hmm. But Lou Williams had probably his worst game of the year in terms of shooting. And, that happens with a guy as streaky as him, and that's kind of what allowed the Nets to get into the game, was that the second unit just didn't have enough offense.
Yeah, when Luis Scola goes on a fast break against your bench unit, that's when you know it's going to be a tough game.
Lakers actually had to delete their account after that happened.
I mean, Derek Fisher was in studio, so maybe he could have just suited up and knocked down a little bit.
Throw a shoulder into him. I'm all for that.
Right. They just whispered to Scola, Derek Fisher works for us still, right? Like,
he's got him on speed dial.
Luis Scola is one of those guys that it always seems like he's like J.J. Barea, one of those kind of role players that always seems to just hurt the Lakers, and I can't really explain it. I really have no idea. And after the Timberwolves game, where you had Bielitsa, I think is who it was, just going off on the Lakers, and even Tyus Jones was hitting threes, and a lot of role players seem to have a career night. But Jacob, just kind of talk about how the Lakers were able to kind of bounce back from that and their response tonight as they earned another victory.
Turns out when the other team doesn't get 45 fouls called in their favor, the Lakers kind of hang into the game. But really, though, I think the best part about tonight's game was that the You mentioned it. The starters played well, and a good part is not that the bench didn't play well, but that the starters were able to carry it. I know we were talking about how kind of weird a stat it is, but all 5 starters had a positive plus-minus tonight, whereas 4 of the 5 bench players had a negative. But that being said, I mean, someone like Tarek Black, who almost had a double-double tonight, was -8. So a little bit of a weird stat. And as Grant pointed out on the tweets, Nick Young was +17. But the fact that the game was close in large part because Nick Young and Lou Williams shot 4 for 19 tonight and 1 of 8 from 3. 2 of your kind of
great, Bob.
No, 2 of kind of your primary scores. And then you add in Jordan Clarkson was 4 of 12, so you're looking at 8 of 31 shooting between those 3. So the fact that they were able to hang on, win the game, everybody else shot well tonight. I think the biggest thing was that D'Angelo finally found his shot. Been struggling with that for a while, and then decided, oh yeah, I'm playing the Nets. Time to inject the ice into my veins. And
another
went berserk.
Yeah. Another big thing was Luol Deng didn't come up that much, so that we kind of just rest easy when that happens.
Yeah, and that's there's been a lot of questions about both of those guys, D'Angelo Russell and Luol Deng, and obviously pretty different ends of the spectrum, right? Where D'Angelo, you expect to kind of keep getting better each and every game. He's just going to keep improving as time goes along. He's 20 years old, but there's been a lot of questions about Luol Deng. And just kind of his fit with this team. You hope that he finds something because the Lakers paid him 4 years, I think $72 million. And you hope you get more than just kind of veteran leadership and a good locker room presence for that price tag. Jacob, I'll throw it back to you on this. What do you think Luol needs to do to kind of get going a little bit? Do you think they need to kind of maybe bring him off the bench or just kind of tinker with the lineups a little bit more? Like, what do they need to do to get him going?
I think I don't want to speculate. He doesn't look healthy almost. Like he grimaced. He was grimacing a lot tonight. I mean, he did take some hard hits, but
and he was hurt during the preseason as well.
Yeah, and he sat out the majority of the preseason. I don't know if you just want to kind of put him on the bench and say, come back when you're healthy, which is a scary thought in year 1 of a $72 million contract. But I also think, I've pointed this out a couple times, this isn't to say Luol Deng's been bad, but the Lakers are also, to a certain extent, misusing him. We knew coming into this year that he was best last season with the Heat as a stretch 4. And Luke and the Lakers have played him predominantly as a small forward this year, which is understandable. There's not a lot of minutes but I mean, if you told me Luol Deng was going to be primarily our small forward this year, I mean, I wouldn't have expected a lot because he was very bad as a small forward last year for the Heat. So I think. Now, I don't really know how to fix the issue because I don't know how you find minutes for Randle, Nance, Deng, all those guys in at the power forward spot. But something needs to happen, I think, because you invested a lot of money into this guy. Yeah, so far it's 267 minutes this year, not counting tonight. 71% of them have been at small forward, whereas last year he played 73% of his minutes at power forward. So it's like an exact opposite reverse. I think that's a big thing.
Well, the solution to the issue is we got to get his talent back from the Monstars, given that this is the 20-year anniversary of Space Jam.
That's clearly what's happening.
Got to go back to Moron Mountain. We have a problem.
Yeah, no, that was a reason why I kind of questioned the signing initially. Obviously, with contracts this past summer, there was kind of that shock effect of seeing the initial numbers because the contract or the salary cap spiked immensely. For for all these teams, but oh dear God, we gotta kick Anthony out of the slack. For those that don't know, this is Anthony Irwin just joining, uninvited, I might ask.
And you're live.
Been
Right
live
after I
for
make a spam
20
joke
minutes.
too, like
See, I set up the Luol Deng bat symbol, and Anthony just came running.
it's actually funny. We were just going to talk about Julius Randle.
Oh, I thought you sent out the Luol Deng bat signal, and it was like, hey, all corpses out there, all old people. And I figured I'd show up.
Well, thanks for joining, Anthony. I did not expect this at all. I can't call it a pleasant surprise, but it's a surprise nonetheless.
That's what I'm here for. I saw the link in there. Actually, I saw the tweet on Lakers Outsiders, and I was like, this would be fun.
All right, Anthony, I'll throw the current topic to you. How did the Lakers fix Luol Deng?
They have you ever seen the movie Old Yeller?
Oh my God.
No, all right. So honestly, they need to let him sit down. For a while. Like Brandon Ingram has been good enough defensively to where like you can just kind of say we can have Deng sit down for a while, make sure he's absolutely 100% physically okay. Because Harrison says all the time that like he came into training camp tired from a long playoff run. He went to one series, and then and he was dinged up during training camp, so we don't know 100% sure if he's still okay or if he's okay quite yet. Let's just make absolutely sure. Brandon Ingram is perfectly fine filling in for those minutes, and there are plenty of guys to make up for corpse abilities on the court. And you try to make it work.
Well, that's probably a better. Oh, go ahead, honey.
I was just going to say my concern with that is that I don't know if Luol Deng is even capable of being healthy anymore, because that dude has so much mileage on him from Tom Thibodeau in Chicago, and he's just had bad knees for like 5 or 6 years now. So I don't know if sitting him even really fixes it. It might, or at least to an extent, but I don't know if it really does much.
Well, I guess
for people listening out there in Chicago, if people are listening out there in Chicago, please roam the streets and find out if there's like some crater out there that has Luol Deng marked on it, so you can find out if Tom Thibodeau actually ran him into the ground.
I saw a tweet that said Luol Deng shoots like his knees hurt.
Yeah. It's like he grabbed a rebound tonight and he shot a layup that didn't get above the rim. So, and to your point though, honey, like the only way they're going to find out is if they sit him, right? Like we know for a fact right now, if they keep on the course that they're going on right now, it probably isn't going to work out very well in the short term, right? So the hope is to get any kind of value you possibly can in the long term, and you're not going to do that so long as he's running out there like he has ankle weights on.
Yeah, and I want to think that him playing against bench players from other teams might help him out a little bit, but I don't even know at this point if that would really help. I mean, he just looks like he's really struggling to move and to get around, and most of his drives, if there's a defender in his way, he's not getting there because he's just a straight line drive guy to the basket. And I don't know. I'm with you, Anthony, though. I think, at some point you just got to say, like, look, take a few weeks off if you need to, try and get your body right. Just relax. And we're going to give Ingram, some more minutes because Ingram's been really good. So, I don't know. I don't know if there's a solution, but that was my concern. This is what I was saying before Anthony just popped up out of nowhere. My concern with the signing initially was that the Lakers already had a surplus of power forwards, and to Jacob's point, that's where he needs to play at this stage of his career. He's not a small forward anymore, really. I guess depending on certain matchups, but yeah, it was a major concern of mine. And then, obviously he's a good guy for Ingram to learn, things from. But for $72 million over 4 years, like I said, you're hoping to get a lot more than just kind of a good locker room presence.
Shooter.
Well, I the way I kind of look at it is, I don't think there's any way the Lakers get actual basketball production that matches $72 million. Like, I don't think there's any way that happens at all. There's no way. But what you hope happens is that, by sitting him, for a little bit here, and by, having Brandon Ingram start as soon as he's, possibly ready, even with staying healthy, that you kind of extend the length of his productivity across this contract so that, the averages kind of play out. So if it isn't, you could try to run him into the ground this season and try to get what's $72 million is it 18 million? No.
I think it's 18.
Yes.
Is it 18?
18.
Yeah, you could try to get all of your $18 million this year and try to make it work. But I don't think that's going to do you any good, because 2-3 years from now, you're going to be getting zero of those $18 million in terms of production down the line. And I would hope that as the Lakers continue to get better, you can still get value out of that contract.
The counterpoint to sitting Luol Deng is that means more minutes for Metta World Peace. So do we really want – no. I do think – I almost think – I know they played well tonight, but it still feels like something in the starting lineup needs to change, because too many times they just come out slow and get it off to bad starts and force the bench to dig them out of a deficit more often than not. I don't know if that's as simple as taking out Deng, putting in Ingram, or if it's moving Clarkson in and putting Swaggy at small forward. I don't know, but I do still think that lineup needs to change in some way.
That's where I agree with Anthony, where you can sit Deng and put in Ingram, and it gives you just as much flexibility on defense, and the offense will move without a hitch. So I just think it's best to give Deng a couple DMP olds and just put
Harry Potter.
and then just put Ingram in there. The offense will run seamlessly, or as seamless as if Deng was in there. So I don't see the negative result in that.
I guess the way I kind of look at it as, the one thing you lose with Ingram going into the starting lineup is his creativity coming off of the bench, right? Because when he's playing with like Lou Williams, he gets to, he brings the ball up the court, he initiates the offense, and that's something that's going to be tough to replace. But even then, when you have Jordan Clarkson in that lineup, you kind of make it work. I actually like your idea, Jacob, of trying to bring, if you bring Jordan Clarkson into the starting five and you shift Nick Young down to the 3, I actually think that could really work and not lose as much creativity coming off of the bench in terms of ball handling.
That probably gives you your best playmaking starting 5 too, which I think that's the biggest issue in the starting 5, is that outside of D'Angelo and Randle, there's nobody there that can really create shots for other people.
Mm-hmm.
If you bring in Clarkson, then that gives you an extra guy that can at least put the ball on the floor and make some things happen.
And then
Sleeping on Mozgov.
Even Lou Williams has been good, with that second unit of creating shots for other people as well. His assist numbers, I think, are really as high as they've been in his whole career. So, it's a good point, Honey, that you brought up. I think that's why the second unit has been really good, because they're just more balanced, because, like you said, they can kind of create for one another instead of, like a guy like Nick Young, where he's just going to kind of create for himself or have shots created for him.
And
the other thing too, like subconsciously, and I might be overthinking this. It's perfect. Like, I do this all the damn time, but when you're on a basketball team and the best guy isn't starting, and as much as players tell themselves it doesn't matter who starts, it's who finishes, and all those cliches that follow along those lines. When you're starting a basketball game and that your best lineup isn't on the court even to start, you're sitting there wondering, at what point do we actually switch this up, right? Mm-hmm. And the bad starts can kind of, I'm not the biggest believer in momentum. I'm not the biggest believer in the intangible, but I do think at some point everybody kind of looks around and says, "Oh, here we go again," and then they see Luol Deng like airball a wide open corner 3-pointer. It's like, this fucking fossil,
I need the bleep button.
Yeah, pardon my French, but I really do think sometimes with basketball players, just because of how competitive they can be, that kind of situation can arise.
Yeah, definitely, and it's it's something that I guess just the whole rotation was something that I've kind of looked at for a while now, with kind of the way the roster is constructed and how Luke Walton was going to balance all these minutes, because it just seems like with all these different combinations and scenarios that you kind of build, it always seems to be one guy that's kind of left out, and it usually comes back to that 3-4-5 rotation where like we were talking about Luol Deng coming off the bench. If you put him at the 4, then you're kind of sacrificing minutes between Larry Nance and Tarek Black, who are both playing really well this year. So, I mean, kind of no matter what way you cut it, there's going to be kind of one guy at least that's left out. So I think Luke's done a pretty decent job so far kind of handling the rotation. There's been some things that have been kind of weird, but it's either way, it's going to be really tough to kind of incorporate everybody the way they need to be, just with the way the roster is built. So,
is it one more thing kind of about leaving people out? I mean, is it weird to anyone else that Jose Calderon just hasn't played this year? I mean, he looked really good in the preseason, and with that second unit, he looked really, really good. And then I think he got hurt and was out for a while, and then he's just only garbage time player now. And I mean, I'm not saying that there's necessarily – I like the way the rotations are with the 10 players now, but it does seem kind of weird that he kind of has found his way out of it despite playing well.
Yeah, and I mean, luckily, I think these kind of issues, I think, are a testament to everybody being healthy, which is great, and hopefully this is something that continues all season. But yeah, no, that's another thing, because I thought, with his shooting and his playmaking ability, I thought that would be something that, the Lakers could really use. But I think at the same time, I think, like I said, with Lou Williams kind of creating the way he has up until pretty much tonight, I mean, like I said, his assist numbers have been really good, and you have Clarkson, a guy that can create, and I mean, with those guard spots already filled with guys that can score and create for other guys. I mean, it's tough. There's kind of a logjam at a couple of different positions on the roster, and I think there's only so many minutes to go around. So,
can we just sit back and realize for a second, you just recognize that the Lakers might be too deep?
What a time to be alive.
First world problem.
I do think, to that point, like Harrison and I talked about this on the last show, but shameless plug, Locked On Lakers, you can find us. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm just waiting for Harrison to join in randomly too.
I had the mouse hovered over that boot user button.
But we did talk about it a little bit of like Marcelo Huertas is a useless roster spot at this point.
Mm-hmm.
He's never, like, we're talking about Jose Calderon not being used. Marcelo Huertas is not as good a player as Jose Calderon might be. And there's that roster spot where, like, Anthony Brown's played one, maybe at this point 2 games. I don't pay any attention to the D League, but like there's an entire league of players, of young players, who might be able to step in and play like a 3-and-D role on the Lakers. And that, there you have Marcelo Huertas, who's the exact same player minus shooting ability as Jose Calderon, and it doesn't really make any sense. So I don't think Huertas, and I've gotten myself into trouble with this, talking about Randle in this way. But I don't think Marcelo Huertas makes it through the year on the Lakers roster, because if Lou Williams is able to step in and be the de facto, second string point guard that he's been able to be, then there's no point in having a 4th string point guard who can't shoot, can't defend, can't do really anything and is 30+ years old. It doesn't make any sense.
I always thought it was weird when, like, in preseason where it was just kind of a given that he was going to make the roster because, I mean, that was even before you have Russell, Clarkson, Lou Williams now, and you'd probably play Brandon Ingram at point guard over and then Calderon. So,
Yeah,
I mean, you're talking
now.
6th-string point guard. So, yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I think I tweeted it the other day, like, what's the point of having him on the roster as opposed to Anthony Brown, where, I mean, we're talking right now about Luol Deng needs to sit out. If you put him out, then that's perfect spot where Anthony Brown could have hypothetically come in and picked up some of those minutes. So
Did you guys see Anthony Brown's first game?
Yeah, he had like
It was
38
absurd.
something, 7 assists and like 6 rebounds or something like that.
Turns out all we needed to do was leave Los Angeles.
Right. Or yeah,
I mean, if he hits his shots, he's way more than capable of hanging around, but it was just always a matter of he wasn't doing that.
it got to the point where I thought he had a better chance of dribbling the ball off his foot and it going into the hoop coincidentally.
To get back to Marcelo Huertas, he has played a little over 22 minutes this whole season. Lakers have played 576 total minutes, and he's played 22 of them. So
He's the veteran glue guy that we need on the team. That's the reason.
He's the
think we have
catalyst.
How many other catalysts do we have on the team?
D'Angelo Russell was called the catalyst tonight, and I think it's going to start some beef in the locker room.
I know. Derek Fisher, I saw he called him that, and I was like, somebody needs to clue the new guy in on who the real catalyst is on the team.
Byron Scott didn't die for this.
So you guys are saying we're going to have a couple cantankerous catalysts? Is that what's going to go on between those two guys?
I think my connection's going out.
You still have your finger over that boot user button?
I do.
It's like the Kevin Garnett cuss button. It's the Anthony Irwin pun button.
I think you cut Huertas and just carry 14 like the championship teams because obviously we're as good and deep as them.
Duh. I mean, they're
Calling every single one of you out when he gets a triple-double against the Spurs on Friday.
Can't wait for all those Huertas fans to start retweeting us now.
All right, so I do have this. I have this bone to pick because my mentions have been a tire fire since the last couple shows when I've.
Oh, I thought they've been that way since you first created your Twitter account.
Well, yeah, I mean that doesn't help either.
Since that first pun was tweeted.
but basically, I want to know, like, could anybody have seen this coming from Randle? Because even people who said like I wasn't obviously as high on Randle as other people, but people who were high on Randle.
Just at me.
All right. Gary, even in your wildest dreams, you didn't see Zach Lowe going out of his way to say like Randle could be special and have these insane assist rates that like Draymond Green or Pau Gasol in his prime was producing.
No, I expected Randle to, obviously show flashes of kind of what he's been able to do because, I was a fan of his at Kentucky when the Lakers were going to be in a position to possibly draft him. Just watching him, I was like, you could see flashes of a good pass or a guy that can see the floor pretty well at times. But I figured, his issues were going to be, and I remember tweeting it out in one of the many nights that Lakers Twitter has debated Randle. I thought his issues were something that were going to take probably 2 years to really iron out. The bad habits of just kind of putting his head down and going to the bucket in a crowd, not finishing with his right hand, his jump shot, all that stuff. I thought was going to be something that took a while to fix, but I thought they could be fixed. But no, I honestly, and I said this after one of the games this year, I'm just kind of blown away with how much he's progressed this fast. Because, I mean, for most of the year, he's been the Lakers' best player. And that's something I don't think any of us saw coming. And, over at Silver Screen and Roll, we did the player rankings, for the Lakers. And most of us had Russell at 1 and I think Deng at 2. And Randle was kind of in there between like 5 and 7, somewhere in that mix. But no, I don't think any of us really saw this leap, at this, this early in the season, like right from the get-go. It's been just mind-boggling, really.
Wait, you're writing at Silver Screen and Roll?
Traitor.
Oh,
I do think
Hashtag boot Gary.
I do think that I by no means did I expect Randall to be this good this early, but I mean something like this was probably what you would expect his, like if he had realized his full potential, a couple years down the road, I probably would have said, yeah, he could do something like this. In the absolute best case scenario, it would have been something like this. For him to do it in what's essentially his second year, it's it's just kind of mind-boggling. Like the stuff he's doing is just unreal. I mean, what was it, 17 points, 14 rebounds, 10 assists tonight is just absurd.
And
Thank you, Boston.
17 points on 8 shots, 5 of 8 from the field. So, and I think that's been the biggest surprise to me really is, last year he was so inefficient as a scorer. He had, I think 11 points, 10 rebounds was his average, which is great. He's double machine, but he was so inefficient as a scorer. And now he's been very efficient. And Anthony, you said this on the last podcast. I think it kind of goes to Luke Walton and this offense, putting guys in positions where they're comfortable and where they can succeed, where they don't have to kind of be forced to be in a position where those bad habits might come up. Like we saw last year and the year before that even. Because we've seen it with a number of players where mistakes that they've made in years past, they're not really making those nearly as much. And I think it's been most evident with Randle more so than anybody.
Julius Randle, what a guy, sees all the debate all summer long about him or Nance and decides, you know what, I'm just going to do the work, put the team on my back, and end this for all of Lakers Twitter so we can all have a good night of sleep without having to debate me and that other guy, Larry Nance.
Julius Randle is the real MVP.
Most improved player.
He very well could be on that. I mean,
No, he really should be, like, at this point, he should be in the top 5 votes for most improved player in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Like he wasn't going to win it last year, even though he broke his leg 14 minutes into his career.
Yeah.
But this year, even with the counting stats that then Time Warner Sports wanted to, that we heard about that all the time. Sportsnet was saying how he averaged a double and all these things that he could be back then based on just those counting stats alone. But the efficiency stats this year have been kind of sort of mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, Luke Walton deserves credit for putting him in those situations, but at the end of the day, it takes him actually understanding those situations to actually take that next step and benefit from them. And I don't think as much crap as I've gotten for, and this isn't me, saying how I was any less wrong. I'll completely cop to being a moron in terms of my take on Julius Randle going on in the summer league. Yeah,
I should have muted him after the word moron.
But I really don't think anybody could have seen this coming. There's just no way. There's just no way, and he deserves all the credit in the world for it.
Yeah, and that was the thing with Randle. I think that I was comfortable with was while I thought the flaws in his game were going to be things that needed 1 to 2 years to really iron out before we saw significant progress. His character and his work ethic, I was comfortable in knowing that if he didn't pan out, it wasn't because he just didn't try, like some players in the past that just didn't put the work in, that just didn't really care that much. It's been pretty well documented at this point, like even when he was out for, his rookie season, how much, he took notes and watched a lot of film and like this and that. But you can just see kind of how he's transformed his body coming in from, what he was in college. And of course, part of that is he was 19 coming in, and I think he's 22 now or soon to be 22. And yeah, you can just, the work ethic kind of speaks for itself, not only with his, on-court production now, but with like I said, just with how he's kind of transformed his body, and he's slimmed down, but he's maintained all that strength that he has and that speed and agility. So, no, I'm just happy for him seeing that a lot of hard work is really starting to pay off, and now you kind of wonder what exactly is his ceiling, because if he can improve this much in one off season, it's you wonder what lies next for him.
Well, it's kind of funny because I right before this, I recorded a podcast with Zach Harper, and he and I were talking. We were kind of evaluating I was evaluating the Wolves, and he was evaluating the Lakers. And Chris Dunn came up, obviously, and Chris Dunn is 22. Julius Randle is 21, right?
Oh,
So when you're thinking about, people look at Chris Dunn and he has this super bright future ahead of him, and he's going to displace Ricky Rubio, and he's going to be the franchise point guard moving forward, rah, rah, rah. And then you look at Julius Randle, and he's a year younger, and I don't think there's even an argument to be made that one guy, Randle, is way further ahead of schedule than Chris Dunn is right now. It's not even close. So
I'm looking up his Julius Randle's stats. I mean, we talked about him being more efficient. Last year, he had an effective field goal percentage of 43.5. This year, it's 55.9. A true shooting percentage last year of 48.2. It's up to 60.9 this year. An assist ratio last year of 11.5, which is 11.5 assists per 100 possessions. It's up to 20.6 this year. And he's doing all of it on almost the exact same usage. It was 21.2 last year. It's 21.5 this year. So just literally across the board, no matter how you look at it, he's a more efficient player. I think the play that kind of, I guess, typifies how far he's come from last year was against Phoenix, when he late in the game, when him and Chandler had kind of jawed and gotten into it, and it set up to where Chandler and him were one-on-one.
Somebody wrote about this. I forget who it was. Some jackass wrote about this, but go ahead.
Last year he 100% would have just bulldozed into Chandler, hoped to get a foul, thrown up a wild shot. This year he just kind of lulled the defense to sleep, hit Clarkson with just a pinpoint pass, and ball game. So
next year he dunks on him.
he goes full Space Jam, jumps from just inside the half court line.
So this year's decision making led to an additional point.
Yeah. Exactly.
Next year leads to a body on the floor.
That's basically what Tyson Chandler is already.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just standing. It just goes to falling, and it's just a pile of dust.
I do think. Like, again, this is completely intangible. There's no way to prove this, but that game that you're talking about, Jacob, with Tyson Chandler, and then a couple games later it was DeMarcus Cousins, and these are a couple of the most intimidating guys in the league, right? Mm-hmm. Like Tyson Chandler was a defensive stopper for a championship team only a couple of years ago, and is still an enormous human being. And Boogie Cousins is effing huge. And in both cases, Julius Randle stands up to both of them, looks them square in the eye, and laughs about it. And
Draymond-esque.
It really is. And I really think this Laker team that continues to outperform expectations, they're looking at the rest of the league. If I'm really going to go full English major here, the NBA as a whole is insanely intimidating right now with all with how top heavy this league is and with how much talent this league has to offer. And this Laker team is looking up at that talent, and they're looking up at the rest of the league, and they're smiling at it. They're staring it down, and they're smiling at it. And you can't help but feel as if it's an extension of their best player right now. You can't help but feel like those two things, that one isn't correlated to the other.
I'm glad Anthony mentioned some of the the talent, the top talent, and some of the talented teams in the league, because that's a perfect segue into what I said we were going to get to. This carried on a little longer than I thought it would. Of course, I didn't expect Anthony to jump in anyways,
My bad.
but the Lakers' next 12 games or so are going to be really, really tough and a big test for just kind of where they are as a team right now. Obviously, they're 7-5. You know, it's something we really didn't see coming. But this is where the schedule is really going to test them. I'll just read off their next 12 games. So they're at home against San Antonio, at home against Chicago, at home against Oklahoma City. They have a home-and-home with Golden State. They play Atlanta at home, and they're back at New Orleans. They play at Chicago, at Toronto, at Memphis, and then they get the Jazz at home, and then they go at Houston. That's a brutal stretch, and then it kind of eases up after that. You get the Nets again, the Sixers, Kings, Knicks, whatever. But
if they're alive.
I guess my question with this is, so they're 7-5 right now, and Hani, I'll throw it to you first because I've seen you be kind of quiet over there, just kind of waiting your turn. But I guess what's the minimum that you would consider that 12-game stretch a win? Is it 4-8, 5-7? What do you think they need to do to come away with that as kind of a win?
Well, we know they're locked in for 2 wins against the Warriors. Take that to the bank. Please don't come at me and say you lost your life savings because of that. You know, it's hard for me because this whole season I haven't had expectations on wins, so I don't know if I can put a number on it. If they can get like 4 or 5 in that stretch, I'd be more than happy. I'm more concerned with how well they stick with some of these better teams like the Spurs and the Warriors, which they've done a great job of all year. If they can keep doing it when it's, you know, a bunch of teams in a row and some of them are on the road, then yeah, that's successful to me. Like I don't really care too much about how many wins they have.
Yeah, Grant. I mean, if you had to put a number on it, what would you consider a win in that 12-game stretch?
12. No. Double answer. I mean, I thought that one that went without saying. I'll go with 5. You know, that'll leave us at 500 after that 12-game stretch. If my math is correct, Hani, I don't know if you can check that. But yeah, no, but if they can get 5 games out of that stretch, that will, you know, all their play leading up to that will hold true, and I think that we'll know whether, you know, it's just attributed to a hot start, you know, teams finding their legs early on in the season, or if, you know, they're really here to stick around and be competitive. So if they can win 5, even 6 games, then I'll consider that a success, and I'll be happy.
Yeah, Anthony, if the Lakers say they do go 5-7 in the stretch and they come out of this 12-game period at 500 on the season, do you think – I feel so weird asking this because I would have never even thought about it before the season, but do you think if after this 12-game stretch they're at 500, we can start maybe discussing like an 8 seed for this team?
So they are right now, what are they, 7-5?
7-5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they could lose 2 more games than they win over the next 12. I'm looking at I'm looking at their, so I could see them beating the Bulls. I don't believe in the Bulls. I could see them beating New Orleans again and the Bulls again. And then Memphis, man, that's going to be tough. So like, I would hope that over their next 12 games that they finish, you know, 4-8. That's what I would be hoping for. Here's the thing. Heading into the season, we said that the playoffs weren't really an option, right? Like nobody was really thinking playoffs. And because of that, I'm still kind of hesitant to start talking about, you know, through stretches like this, expectations in terms of wins, because I really don't feel like that does anybody any kind of good. So if they do 4-8, great. But if they go, 2-10, and in every single one of those games they're close with the teams that they're playing against because this is a tough stretch, then that to me is just as fine as well. And then they just got to, if they can cut their way back into the lead that teams will take on them in the playoff race, then that's fine. But for me right now, it's just a matter of how often can they be in close games in the fourth quarter against, potential playoff teams. And then we'll kind of take it from a win total from there. I know I kind of dodged the question, but I just win expectations when we didn't have any heading into the season, putting win expectations on them 10 games into the season doesn't really make much sense to me.
Yeah.
I think this is the kind of the final, I don't know how to say this. I think this stretch right here will kind of determine how good this team is. I know I said something similar last time we were on the podcast where the stretch that they went through, I think it was like a 6-game stretch after the Warriors to now, I said they needed to finish like 4-2 or something, which is exactly what they did. Now I think, it's so weird to talk about the playoffs. If they're 500 coming out of this, there's 12-12, a quarter of the way through the season, and I know this is looking way ahead, but the end of their schedule is really, really easy at the end of the year. They have like a month-long stretch where they leave LA like twice. It's so weird to talk about playoffs, but if they're 12-12, 11-13, something like that, I think at that point playoffs become a real discussion. It's just crazy to think about. I don't know what you would anticipate. I didn't even look at playoff projections. I would assume something around 500 would get you an 8 seed. So, conceivably through a quarter of the season, the Lakers would be playing over a quarter of the way through the season. They'd be playing at a playoff level. So, just the fact that we're into mid-November and we're still talking about the playoffs being an option is awesome and totally and completely unexpected.
That's a massive change of pace from the last 3 years.
I'm pretty sure they were mathematically eliminated last year by this time.
They didn't get their seventh win until, just real quick, they didn't get their 7th win until they were like
January.
Yeah, the 44th game or something last year. I'm trying to find how sweet. Yeah, 34 games. They were 7-27 through 34 games. They're 7-5 through 12 games.
So I said if they go 4-8, then I'd be fine with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because right after these 12 games, they go Phoenix, Knicks, Sacramento, Brooklyn, Philadelphia, and if they win 4 out of those 5, then all of a sudden they're above 500 again. So I look again. I don't. The win total doesn't matter as much to me. Just so long as they're close with these, in all of these potential playoff games. I think the Warriors are probably going to stomp them the next 2 games.
Yes.
That probably isn't going to go very well.
I'm gonna need a Twitter bet between you and Hani on this one.
But so if they're close with in either of those games, then if they're close against the Spurs, and if they're close against like Oklahoma City, I feel like is a winnable game because of how rough they've had to go of it lately.
It's their best start ever, though.
Sorry, Royce.
I knew Anthony would like that.
But if they're close with Utah again, like that's all that matters to me. And like I said, if 4-8 and then they win 4 or 5 of the next 5, then all of a sudden they're above 500 again. Like that's to me, if they're anywhere near 500 at the end of the season, that's 10, 12 games better than anybody thought they might have been, even with their most obnoxious predictions. And I'm not counting, at rings 16 like those guys don't count. But
You actually added me, bro.
Wow. Crooked Anthony says people don't count. Bad.
Sad.
But yeah, no. I mean, if they're like you said, Anthony, they're around 500. I mean, they're at least doubling their win production from a year ago with a group that's very similar. You know, there's obviously some new faces, but that would be an incredible leap.
And the lack of one very prevalent old face.
Frowny face.
Yeah.
I'm still not over Kobe.
What was it used to do? It was like, "Psst." This is the weirdest thing ever. He started hissing at teammates.
Oh yeah, whenever he would like get hot or something, he would just start hissing. It's like, yeah.
That's just the legend of the Mamba. Come on now.
I'm gonna start doing that on podcasts when I haven't talked in a while.
It's gonna be Honey's calling card.
Someone just says too hot of a take, and Honey's just like.
So one more thing, I think our over under was 26.5. I think somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there.
24 and a half, I thought.
Yeah,
24 and a half. There you go. That sounds right. Let's just go with that.
Okay, so if it's 24 and a half, the Lakers to meet that at this point would have to go to fall under that. Would have to go 17 and 53 down the stretch.
Well, I mean, if anything holds true from the past few years, we're gonna have one wild ride to the worst record in franchise history.
But I mean, just consider that for a second. Just how crazy! Like they're gonna, I would assume, just obliterate that over under, and that's just such. I mean, they're a third of the way to their over under mark, 12 games into the season. So
yeah.
They were coasting tonight.
Yeah, they were 100%.
Like, think about that. They were coasting because they knew that they were better than the team that they were playing against.
Yeah, it's been a while since they've been able to say that.
Randle even said it post game.
Yeah.
He said that this is a game that we were supposed to win, and I was like, all right, now I'll go with it.
I don't remember, I don't remember that feeling, but
right, it was such an unfamiliar feeling. Like I was so shocked but happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Lakers right now are tied for 5th in the Western Conference at 7-5 with Portland and Utah, which is crazy to say.
We almost have home court advantage.
This is what Kobe died for.
At this stage, it's pretty crazy to say that they're tied for 5th right now.
This is okay. Kobe died for this. It's okay.
But real quickly, I want to get to these fan questions. There's only a handful of them. First one, I'll answer for all of us. Can Brandon Ingram shut down Kawaii? Duh, he's Brandon Ingram. His arms just extend endlessly. So, Kawhi's going to, probably score, I want to say probably like 4 points when Ingram goes on the bench. Something like that. Somebody's going to show this to Kawhi Leonard. He's going to score 50 against us.
I don't think Kawhi Leonard knows what a podcast is.
Right, someone's just going to tell him what we said, like verbally, and he's just going to give him a nod. And that's it.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Kawhi, are you pissed?
So the next question is actually for Anthony. He asked if Anthony still thinks that Nance should be starting over Julius Randle.
Oh, wow.
Yes. I'm going to kill all you.
Anthony's going to die on that hill.
So, again, I said back in Vegas that I thought Randall was the better player of the two. Like, people forget that aspect of the conversation. Like, that just didn't occur somehow.
No, just talk about the hot take part. Come on now.
And the other thing, too, was that I thought, and a lot of other people really thought, that D'Angelo Russell was going to dominate the ball. So if D'Angelo Russell was going to be dominating the ball, then you didn't need somebody who could dominate the ball the way that Julius Randle has been able to, right? And Randle's ability to handle the ball and be as creative as he's been has added to the Lakers' overall ability to score. So I'm perfectly happy with that. But I was evaluating Randle off of what I thought D'Angelo Russell was going to be doing. And with all this said, I thought Randall was going to get traded, so I sounded like a dumbass.
I think the main takeaway here is never go on a gondola.
Right, one gondola ride and everybody loses their minds.
Unless your ticket was paid for. Okay, your ticket was paid for, so we're good.
Wait,
Unless you're behind the camera.
you never paid me back for that, Gary?
Oh, I did. It was when we went on that overnight bender, and we're just not going to talk about that. Right?
It got lost in the fanfare of the picture of the gondola ride.
The next question is from my man Andrew Jones, fellow Titans fan out there. It's weird being excited about a team that's
a rare
500,
breed.
but he asks, but seriously, how stupid is Byron Scott? I think, we're just not even going to talk about that guy. I don't even want to bring that name up. We don't find anybody on here like Anthony and Harrison do, but
I don't know who that is.
We're just happy to have old Luke Walton there as our head coach.
Dead to me. Byron's dead.
New podcast, Who Dis?
No need to talk about Lord Voldemort.
He who shall not be named. The next question was about
Did you guys see him on the jump today, Byron?
Yeah.
I actively avoid him, so no.
It was pretty
He
funny.
loves Lukey.
Yeah. But Grant, did you see the part where he was basically like, he was naming the Lakers young players, and then he came to D'Angelo Russell's name, and he kind of like
paused a little bit.
And D'Angelo,
like he said it in the most painstakingly like bitter way,
yeah.
but like tried to seem happy about it.
Yeah,
like
you could see the
just wish,
thought bubble in his head where it was just like middle fingers straight up to everybody.
Right, he wanted to be like D'Angelo, eye roll.
Yeah,
and like even like when Rachel Nichols was talking about how it could have been him coaching this team, it seemed like he was still taking credit for everybody developing like they did over the summer, which I thought was hilarious.
He laid the foundation. Ask James Worthy.
Yeah, that's where we change the subject.
Right. I mean, the one true test to see if Byron had any lasting impact is if they can get that Celtic ass.
All right. The next question is, this is actually kind of an interesting question, and we'll kind of go down the line. Who has the best chance on the Lakers? I don't know if he means this year or I guess just the next one to happen. We said, who has the best chance for an all-star selection? Ani, go ahead. You've been kind of quiet, so go ahead and take this one away.
Okay, if we're going this year, I'd probably go with Randall because I think he's had the most production. I think people just generally like big guys that can pass the ball and do kind of guard level type things. So I think that kind of favors him if he's to be voted in. But moving into the future, D'Angelo's got the best chance. He's the more star level player just in terms of his play and his personality, which I think is super important in this kind of thing.
Well, I think we would probably all agree on the two that have the best chances at it, I guess, down the line. And like multiple all-star appearances are Ingram and Russell, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, but I go Russell over everybody if we're talking future.
I guess I'll hijack this question a little bit, and I'll just go down the line on my screen. So I'll start with Anthony. Anthony, who's going to make more all-star games, D'Angelo Russell or Brandon Ingram?
Wait, why aren't we talking about Julius Randle?
Okay, and Julius Randle.
Because honestly, so you have to also look at the other guys who played the positions, right?
Yeah.
So, like in the Western Conference, you have Chris Paul, you have
Kevin Durant,
Westbrook, Lillard.
Yeah, you have insane
Curry
amounts of you have insane amounts of talent at the point guard position. So D'Angelo Russell has quite the uphill battle to make it there. And then at the small forward position, you still have Kevin Durant. Harrison Barnes has somehow not been awful in Dallas, which is odd. Gordon Hayward is a huge fan favorite because he's like in Utah, and And
Okay. Don't make this a problematic pod.
I'll see you guys. I'm off.
wait, that was just a really random cough. But you look at the power forward
talking
position.
about white people.
You look at the power forward spots, and it's Anthony Davis, but he's kind of sort of best suited as a center. Same goes for Karl Anthony Towns. Now it's like it's all the forward positions kind of meshed together.
Mhm.
But if Randle continues on the trend he's going in, and the position that he plays at continues at the trend he's going in, I could see Randle tallying up more All-Star appearances than anybody on the Lakers.
Yeah, that was going to be my argument, is that if I recall correctly, they just have like 3 forward spots now for All-Star voting. So, I mean, there's more spots for him to potentially make it and less competition ahead of him, like directly ahead of him. So I think, at least right now, I would say Randall. I mean, I still think he's going to be, I mean, assuming that how he's playing now is how he is going to consistently play. I mean, he's going to be in the All-Star conversation. I'll be interested to see the voting because, I mean, the Lakers always kind of have a pretty significant bump in voting whenever anybody's even a halfway decent player. So now that Randall's really good and the Lakers are really relevant,
I'm just gonna vote Mozgov like all day, every day, just to really throw a wrench into this. But
Create 14 different emails.
Grant, of those 3 players, though, who do you think who would get the most All-Star selections in their career?
Well, I was gonna lean Russell, but Anthony and Jacob bring up a pretty convincing argument about logistically how many spots are left, and and like you said, we don't know how high Julius Randle's ceiling is going to be because if he keeps developing like he has this summer, then what's to say he becomes an even better player in the near future. So I'm starting to lean towards Randle, and I'm thinking to myself, some of those Kobe votes are going to go away. People aren't going to vote for some Lakers like they voted for Kobe, but a substantial amount are going to be retained, and some players are going to benefit from that. And so whether it'll be Randle, Russell, or Ingram, that remains to be seen. And I think it just goes to the player that's producing the most. But I think Randle gets the most All-Star appearances.
I'm gonna say
just went off on that.
I'm gonna say Ingram just because we all know Kevin Durant's gonna be a Cleveland Cavalier next year when they win it all.
does that mean the Cavs are going to be the one that blow the 3-1 lead?
I mean, they might. I mean, the Indians did it, so maybe it just transfers over. Maybe Cleveland just starts a brand new streak of just
That would be
terrible
peak Cleveland. Win a title and then go back-to-back blowing 3-1 leads.
3-1 leads.
Showing solidarity.
All right, so the last
And then the Browns.
question is, why no whistles for Mozgov? Mozgov really was kind of the biggest, I guess, the referees in the Minnesota game were that kid with the magnifying glass on a hot day, and Mozgov was just that ant that was on the hill because he could not be on, he could not be on the floor for more than like 30 seconds without getting called for some very questionable foul call. So
either he's getting punched in the face or fouling out again.
Did he take a blow to the face today? Are we going to win our next game?
They're just,
I don't think he
they're
did.
just like, you got paid $64 million. You're going to earn that $64 million.
referees just don't like Russians, man. I'm telling you.
One concussion at a time.
Does this count as a fan question that I get a lot? Because every time I tweet something, well, not every time, but some guy says, "Is this that Anthony Irwin guy?"
I mean, I don't know how to answer that question.
Nobody
Is
does.
it a good joke or not? Because otherwise
Yes.
it was that Anthony Irwin guy.
All right, that's going to do it for us this time. This podcast went a little longer than I expected to thanks to a certain somebody just hopping on in.
That Anthony Irwin guy.
That damn Anthony Irwin guy. That guy that tries to be funny, but
Like Anthony Irwin.
He just tries so hard to be funny.
No, I want to thank everybody that tuned in, that was watching live with us. We got some comments on YouTube and stuff like that, so we always appreciate that. I love the fan feedback, the questions that you guys send us. It's awesome. It's stuff we love to talk about. I want to thank you three of you plus I guess Anthony. Thanks for showing up whenever on your own schedule. That's like a superstar treatment, I guess. But
Kobe's showing up whenever he wants.
that was the equivalent of Wiggins shooting like 20 free throws.
It's the former host treatment is what it is. That's what it is.
It's
Strong words from Grant, who literally jumped in 20 seconds before we went live on our last podcast.
That's
too.
true. That's just it's a tradition for us. But
Anthony had to upstage me, man.
You want to see Fast and Furious? Watch it.
No,
Soon
but
Gary's just going to be starting a podcast by himself and hoping that we just jump on.
We're gonna file in one by one.
I'm not going to invite any of you. I'm just going to kind of see who just jumps in.
Just go live and see who joins in.
I was just going to start the podcast, and then I was just going to go walk away and just go do whatever. And then I come back, and there's like 6 of you just all talking. But no, again, I want to thank you for jumping on, and those of us that followed along and sent us the questions. As always, you can find all of our content on LakersOutsiders.com. You can like our Facebook page. It's just Lakers Outsiders. Follow us on Twitter. You can find all of our podcasts on iTunes. You can subscribe on YouTube as well. I think that covers it. You can also follow us all on Twitter. I think Anthony, yours is at Anthony Irwin LA, right?
I'm at that Anthony Irwin guy.
Grant is at Grant Goldberg. Hani is at BLSS blog. And Jacob is at Jacob Rude, I believe. I don't know. It's just kind of programmed into all my devices now. So then I'm just at Gary Kester. You can follow us all.
Wait, you're not at Potato Head? That guy I followed the other day.
At
That
Hot
potato guy. That Anthony Irwin guy.
I'm that Anthony verified Irwin guy.
Okay.
Oh, my.
All right.
Boot user.
But
At that
I
booty
had
guy.
to, I had to eject him from the podcast.
Yeah.
You really
It was long overdue, but no, again, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thank you, 3, I guess, now, and we'll see you guys next time.